The UCC and You First Edition 1. The UCC and You. First Edition. A brief overview of commercial law, contracts, and how they may or may not involve you. The material is intended only for educational purposes and does not render any legal, professional nor financial advice. This educational book is for education only. Things are constantly changing, strive to stay current. The UCC and You First Edition 2. Index of Contents. Section Description I. Overview and History of the UCC 2 Definitions and Cases with their proper usage 3. Law, Contracts, and Consent IV Choice of Law Jurisdiction v. Perfection, Attachment and Priority Rules v. Licenses and Privileges 7. UCC and Banking 8. Patents and Common Law Trademarks X UCC Forms and How They Work X. UCC State Status and Contact Information. The UCC and You First Edition 3. I. Overview and History of the UCC. Before you dive into the depths of the Uniform Commercial Code UCC, I suggest you have some direct and black and white, on-point research materials to help guide you through a complete understanding of the clutches of the UCC. Some of the best books found for this adventure come straight from the American Bar Association itself. Please take time to not only get some of these books but make sure you use them in their entirety for a clear understanding of all terms and applications. There are many books. Some of particular interest are: How to Order the UCC Books from the American Bar. 1. The Portable UCC 2. The ABCs of the UCC. Article 9.3. The new Article 9.4. Default Provisions of the Revised Article 9.5. ABCs of the UCC. Article 8. These can be ordered from the American Bar at ABA Publications P.O. Box 10892 Chicago, IL 606100892. 1-800-285-2221 toll-free 1-312-988-5568 fax to bar service at abanet.org. Email to American Bar. The UCC and You First Edition 4. Now before we begin the journey we suggest you have a quick reference to certain section of the code itself. This should help you find certain things based upon their topics. Article 1. General Provisions 1995. Article 2. Sales 1995. Article 2A. Leases 1990. Article 3. Negotiable Instruments 1991. Article 4. Bank Deposit 1994. Article 4A. Funds Transfers 1994. Article 5. Letters of Credit 1995. Article 6. Bulk Transfers and Revised Bulk Sales 1989. Article 7. Warehouse Receipts, Bills of Lading and Other Documents of Title 1966. Article 8. Investment Securities 1994. Article 9. Secured Transactions 1999. Now before you get right into things, there are a couple things one must have a complete understanding of. This takes us back into American history to see what the UCC is itself and where it came from. The UCC and You First Edition 5. What the Secretary of State in Michigan says regarding the UCC. UCC Overview http://www.michigan.gov/so/0,16071/27412-127-163-1_885-1-29412-00.html. The Uniform Commercial Code law governs commercial transactions. The code includes 11 articles covering a variety of areas such as sales, negotiable instruments, bank deposits and collections, and investment securities. Article 9 of the Uniform Commercial Code UCC, titled Secured Transactions, designates the Office of the Secretary of State as the place for the filing and searching of secured transaction documents. Financing statements are filed as a public notice of a security interest in collateral. Record searches are requested to reveal financing statements filed against an organization or individual. For example, when a debtor-borrower pledges collateral to obtain a loan, a UCC financing statement tells a secured party creditor whether others have financing statements against the same collateral. Filing a UCC financing statement is a protective measure because it provides a public notice to other parties. Debtors also benefit because the notice system helps them obtain business funding. Legally, it puts the creditor in the position of a secured creditor, and a perfected UCC financing statement may be acted on in case of default. In the event of a bankruptcy proceeding, the creditor will be in a better position to enforce its legal rights. Bit of background and overview how we got here and the way out. The information is compiled right from the UCC code, right from the latest changes, and from some of the most powerful codes this planet has ever seen. The UCC and You First Edition 6. The whole thing started obviously when we had 13 signers to an original Declaration of Independence. That was an underlying contract that was signed by 13 different leaders that said, no more. We are done, we are independent from you. We are going to rule ourselves, and that contract led up to another one which is known as the Constitution and another the Bill of Rights, the Articles of the Confederation, etc., etc. etc. These contracts are what formed a nation here over 200 years ago. It was formed under contract and sub-formed under codes, rules and regulations. In 1871 the United States created Act that was called the District of Columbia Organic Act. At that point in time there was only a government and a people, individually based upon the contracts that were written almost 100 years prior to the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, etc. etc. This new act, called the District of Columbia Organic Act, created the first corporate government that the United States of America has ever seen, and it created a new corporation that most people don't see let alone believe. Because it's corporate America, it has everything to do with commerce, it's under contract law. Shortly thereafter, they created what is known as the Bureau of Vital Statistics. The Bureau of Vital Statistics is what formed a birth certificate of title chattel paper. With the help of the 14th Amendment and the newly created Bureau of Vital Statistics, this birth certificate is what created the first ever in America corporate person known as a straw man, a juristic person or any other kind of fictitious corporation that you can put in your mind and just think about. It is a fiction, a third-party front, a dummy. It is not you, it is a word that reflects the certificate of title chattel paper. It's a contract. These contracts enabled the corporate United States to contract with a corporate us. What people have to understand is how they incorporated themselves. They see that one of the biggest problems with some of past or even present information that's out there is a lot of people want to go back to the law. Well, under these contracts that we're speaking of, you became a surety. The surety was responsible to pay for this entire corporation's new. The UCC and You First Edition 7. Existence, such as the Federal Reserve, such as the IRS, such as the Social Security Administration. I hope that everyone out there understands why this corporation is starting to exist and how it came about and how they get to us. They don't deal with us, they deal with our juristic person. The fictional you. Your driver's license, your social security card, most all bills that you get, most anything you get will have your juristic person's name. It's the commerce created by birth certificate and the 14th Amendment citizen name. It is a created U.S. citizen you, not the real flesh and blood you. It is your front. When they started to contract and they switched over our gold, which was in 1933, they took all of the gold and they started using a paper currency, which is a Federal Reserve note FRN, the dollar bills that we carry around. When they created that new little creature, the corporate America was free to use as much of this paper currency it wanted to. It didn't have to use the gold and silver, so it could just exchange promises from one hand to another. Again, you have to sit back and understand that a corporation is coming after you. There is no Mr. General Motors. General Motors is nobody. It is just a fiction. The information that we've gotten and use is compiled from many years of research, study, trial, and errors. If you look inside the Bill of Rights, most people know we got them, but most people don't understand what it really is or does. You have to stand back and look at the overlying contract. Article 1 through 10 all are a contract for the agents and agencies of the government designed to serve and protect us, and these 10 articles are there to protect us and limit them. Again, it is their contract, not ours. It is their agreement, under oath, not our rights. Our rights come from the highest power, not any secular government. So what the UCC does is actually goes in, it allows you to take those contracts and make a claim against the listed properties. Once you have made a claim, you have an interest in the property, and now consideration needs to be made in order for you to lose your priority in that interest. Or in other words, they have to buy an interest in order to gain a priority. Of the UCC and You First Edition 8. Course, you could just rescind all documents as well, but please understand this study course before trial by error occurs for you. Consent is the largest issue in contract law. It's something that has worked in all levels, it works everywhere because it is the law. Law is defined as a rule or regulation from a government to its citizens. When you look into a consensual encounter, or voluntary compliance, the first thing that happens when you get pulled over, for instance, what happens to you? What do? What's the first thing they ask you for? Can I see your driver's license, registration, or, can I see your papers? They are asking you to voluntarily give them their papers, agreements, so that they can charge you. Why? Because they own the contract, and they can do that by your agreement to the contract. You signed that driver license, correct? You paid for the license, correct? You didn't know it, but you turned all your rights into certain privileges, and you went in and asked them for it and paid them for it, and they have the proof of it simply by seeing your state of blank driver license. The Fourth Amendment is about consent. And the Fourth Amendment is probably the most powerful amendment, powerful law, and powerful set of words in law. If you have anything that you would like to study on, it should be the Fourth Amendment. Brown versus Texas. Ask yourself this question after reading it: does it grant any rights, or does it impose a liability? After asking this, ask yourself, to whom does this liability hold to? You or the sworn agents under oath? Consent. I do not agree or consent. What they are doing to you is that they, as a corporation, are coming up to you as a corporation and asking you to contract with them. They have no evidence, nor can they deal with anything but that fiction. I'm sorry, I don't want to do business with you. And the information works because of the way that the code is set up. It enables you to make claims on your property. That's what the UCC is. So many people that I talked to in the past have said, you file your UCC and your problems will go away. That is so far from the truth. I don't even want to comment any further than that. The UCC and You First Edition 9. A UCC is an asset protector, and it allows you to register certain property that you are making a claim upon. That is what it is. If there is no claim, you can't claim back on it. So right now, up until this point, if you're new to this, you didn't understand any of what was just said, but it's starting to become clear to you now, as though it's a corporation against a corporation, and you have to step back behind the scene there and realize that the IRS, the state of blank, the United States, are all fictions coming after you. They don't exist other than in your mind and in your agreement. You can't call Mr. IRS to the stand in a courtroom. He won't show up. We've been looking for him for years. We can't find him. We've been looking for another guy called Society for quite some time, but we can't find him either. They don't exist. So, if they don't exist, then they can't make the claim on the property. You can, though, once you make a proper claim, get a claim in there. If anyone was to try to infiltrate your property, now you have stated a claim, in which relief can be granted. You now hold a superior claim. Do you really think they will say they are entitled to your name? Just a synopsis. there is a corporate government and a real government, and they have created a fictional you, which is known as a juristic person. And this corporate government is doing just what McDonald's is doing when you pull up to McDonald's. May I help you? Sure, I'll take a number 3 with a Coke. Okay, that will cost you $5.14. They are conducting business with you. And you have the right, every state citizen has this right, to where you can or cannot, it's your option, to conduct business with whomever you wish to. If you don't wish to do business with somebody, you don't have to. No one can force you to. It is the same concept. It's just we set our groundwork and do our claim ahead of time. That way it will minimize chances of an issue. Test for you. Send a FOIA to an attorney general and ask them if any corporation can compel you to do business with them. When they tell you, no, send another asking if the USA, IRS, state of, blank, operates under commerce. See your response. Are they sidestepping the question? Seems like an easy question, so if they resist, then you may have something. The UCC and You First Edition 10. Now for some history on this topic from the legal end. If this. In 1950, or so, some major change took place in the way government came about. This may have been in response to the 1948 Judiciary Act that created the USDCs. On July 31, 1945, pursuant to I-817 and IV-3, 2, Congress passed the District of Columbia Organic Act on February 21, 1871, Chapter 62, 16 Stat. 419, forming the corporation known as District of Columbia. This corporation was reorganized June 11, 1878, Chapter 180, 20 Stat. 102, and renamed United States Government, and it trademarked the names United States, US, USA, USA, and America. The states of the Union all organized as corporations only much later, between 1962 and 1968. Look for the Administrative Organization Act or some such in your state. These acts created corporations known as state of blank. This corporation was charged with the responsibility of carrying out the business needs of the national government. This harkens back to a discussion I read earlier on suing the sovereign when it is not the sovereign being sued. It issued bonds to cover its expenses until 1912, when there were more bonds due than there was money of account in the treasury to pay for the bonds. It was the banking families who had bought up these bonds, and they became due and payable. The corporation asked these banking families if they could borrow the money to pay for the bonds, and the families refused. Instead, provisions were made to fund the corporation but not the government with securities issued against monies held by the banking families. This occurred on Jekyll Island, Georgia in 1913. These securities were known as Federal Reserve Notes. Even though the government could not sign this contract, the corporation could and did. This was a private contract between private corporations. We can skip the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917 and the Emergency War Powers Act of 1933, which are important but not for the purposes of this discussion. Which brings us to the Act of July 31, 1945, ch. 339, sec. 2, 59 Stat. 512. 22 U.S.C. 286. Acceptance of membership by United States in International Monetary Fund. The President is hereby authorized to accept membership for the United States in the International Monetary Fund, hereinafter referred to as the Fund, and in the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, hereinafter referred to as the Bank, provided for by the Articles of Agreement of the Fund and the Articles of Agreement of the Bank as set forth in the final Act of the United Nations Monetary and